Hello and welcome to my craft room. It's time to make another heart for my ready for the Arty Farty Hearties swap, which starts on the 1st of April. I won't go on about it now because I've covered that in a couple of previous videos, but I will link to the playlist so you can check that out, and you'll also in the description box find my link tree so you can find your way to the Facebook group and the Discord community, and you can go to either or both of those places. They're all free to join, and that's where you can find all the information you need and start looking for swapsters if you'd like to join in with this swap. It's not all about stitching this time. We can use any arts and crafts we like, any materials that we enjoy using. You can just agree that with your swapsters, but at the moment I'm doing some stitched ones first, and then I'm going to be moving on to trying out some other crafts and techniques and things that I want to play with, because making these little hearts is a really nice opportunity to experiment and use up some of the things I've been hoarding and try out some of the things I've been wanting to try. So today, let me take you to the desk. Today I'm going to be making another one a bit like this. So this is all made out of, it's all silk scraps on the front. You can use quite small scraps with a piece of backing behind it. It's stuffed quite fat, but you could make it flatter if you wanted to. You could do a similar idea, but keep it quite flat for postage. You could definitely add a hanger to it. You could definitely add a tassel, bling it up, or something like these little bells. Or I've got smaller tassels here as well. Maybe a smaller tassel would be good. Maybe a little bunch of beads or something. What I've done is I've just collaged these scraps of silk onto a plain backing fabric, just a piece of cotton, and then I've stitched into them. So you can see I've added seed stitching around here, I've added some sequins, I've done some Y stitching between the pieces here, I've stitched little lazy daisy stitches around some of the print on that piece and added beads to the centre of those little flowers. And here I've put beads in the middle of it was a print like this here and just done a kind of almost like a blanket stitch kind of eyelet around that little motif there. Here I've done lines of chain stitch, here running stitch in a thicker thread, and here just one strand, same plain running stitch, but just in one strand of a stranded cotton there. Here this one's a whipped back stitch. So these little pieces are just a really fun way to play with all the stitches and things, use up tiny scraps and create something beautiful to send to one of your swapsters. On the back I've used a piece of, I just was given a bag of fabric from a friend who'd been clearing out some of her mum's things, and amongst it was this kind of dress lining stuff. Some in this bright pink and some in a dark blue, and I thought, oh, what am I going to do with that? But I'll hang on to it because it'd be good for something. And there we go, already I've found a use for it. I only got it a week ago, so I'm quite pleased about that. And here I just backed it with a piece of this cotton curtain interlining, which is really lovely to stitch into. But anything with a bit of thickness and give to it is nice to back a fabric before you stitch into it. Especially when it's something thin like this, which I wouldn't enjoy hand stitching into otherwise. But yeah, I just used a number 8 pearl thread and stuffed it, and then did a kind of whip stitch all around the outside. So I'm going to make another one kind of similar to this and show you how I did it, and I might still end up adding some dangles to this or adding a hanging loop or something. I might just send it like this. I quite like it just like this. I've got this was something I was experimenting with, but I'm not going to be using, so I'm going to use that for my backing. I've got that piece of the curtain lining and that piece of the batting. What I've started doing is making myself up, going through the stuff, thinking about roughly what I want to do, and making myself up a kind of a little mini kit of what I'm going to use, just to break it down a little bit. So here I've got those fabrics, I've got my bag of silk pieces. Even quite small pieces like this can be used. Obviously needles and pins, scissors. I've got sequins in various colours that will go with the red and pink silk pieces that I've got. A little dinky pair of scissors as well. Heat erasable pen, fabric glue, but you can use just a normal glue stick as well. Just some normal sewing cotton, clips in case I want them, and some number 8 pearl threads and thicker pearl threads, like maybe number 5, I'm not sure what those are, and some stranded cottons in there. So just a good variety there, and then a selection of beads in there. So that is, believe it or not, that is a little small kit compared to the massive amount of stuff I ended up with all around me the other day. Now the hearts, the suggested size for the hearts, really they can be any size and shape, but I would suggest that you make them so they fit within a 10 centimetre square. Having said that, if you want to send a bigger one, I'm sure nobody's going to mind. And this one I'm starting off with, this square is kind of 15 centimetres, but I'm thinking by the time I've cut the heart shape out and then put the pieces on, then stitch the two sides together, it'll come down to about the right size. I mean, this is probably this is fractionally over the 10 centimetre square, but when we've done the swaps before, we've had specific sizes for the stitched squares and stitched tags. They've been 10 centimetre squares or 5 by 10 centimetre tags, and indeed you could still do them if you would prefer to do that, and you can stick to stitching if that's what you love to do. Just agree it with your swapsters. But we thought it would be fun this time to say anything goes, and it can be 2D, 3D, whatever you like. So first thing I'm going to do is just draw myself, I've folded my fabric in half, and I'm just going to draw myself half a heart. That's my starting point. So many ideas I want to play with. Just thought I'll start off with a few stitched ones. And then next week I'm going to start doing some different, trying out some different crafts and things. Here's an idea for something that's really completely different. So this doesn't look like a heart at the moment. This was 3D printed by my son Tom, and it's actually a little container, like a little puzzle container. He laughs at me because he says it's not really a puzzle. But look, heart! Now I can't work it. You see, it is a puzzle because I can't work out how to open it. Oh, here we go. Well, yeah. And these are, I don't think these are anything in particular. They could be games pieces, they could be, you could put whatever in there. So I think it might be quite fun. At some point I might paint that up and make that one of my hearts that will go in my treasure chest. I don't think I can bring myself to send that to a swapster because this is mine from Tom. But I just thought that was so cute, isn't it? So yeah, if you have a 3D printer and that's what you love to do, you could print something. You could print a heart and paint it up, and yeah, anything goes. And for one, I will be doing a mixture of things, and I don't mind what kind of hearts I get in return. I don't mind the size or the shape or what crafts or what materials are used. So I think it will have a broader appeal. It will include, everyone in our community can have a go, rather than it just being the people who are into stitching. Okay, so next thing is to just patch on my pieces. So I'm going to use this fabric glue stick, but as I say, you could just use a normal glue stick, Pritt stick, or whatever you've got. It's fine as well, actually. Just a little dab of it just to hold the pieces there. And I might as well use those smaller pieces rather than cut into bigger pieces as well. I might use some of these to make a little hanger for this one, because that would be quite nice, wouldn't it? I could still add a hanger to that one as well, so people could hang it up on I've got one that a friend gave me years ago, and it hangs on the doorknob on my craft room, which is quite nice. I think with this one I started with a piece of this, but you can't even see it anymore. Okay, let's put that there. You don't need much of this glue, just enough to tack it down. And I'm going to use a mixture of all the different shades of red and pink in here to keep it interesting. will also tend to, if there are pieces with a kind of a wonky shape like that, this is a good chance to use them. So I'm going to be introducing some different colours into this one, aren't I? Yeah, so if there's any pieces like this that have got like wonky edges, it's a good good opportunity to straighten those up and use the bits. So I think that's fine. You don't need to overthink it. So now I'm just going to put little dabs of the glue around just to hold these bits in place roughly while I get them tacked down. So not too much. I don't want it to get all sticky to stitch into. Although actually, in practice I've never actually found that to be a problem using this glue, but. So this will come out, it's the same method, but it will come out looking completely different. And I could hear I've chosen to use kind of harmonising colours that are next to each other around the colour wheel, so pinks, reds and oranges all harmonise together really well. But I could just as well use a bit of a contrast, so maybe I'll try that this time just for a change, although I've already pulled out my threads that I was planning to use, but I might bring in a bit of green this time for a little bit of contrast and more of this kind of more orangey colour, and I could just bring in touches with the beads and sequins as well to give it a slightly different look, as I've got a bit of like orange there, a bit of the green here. Yeah, it might be quite nice to bring in more of those. Okay, so now the next thing is to just take some normal sewing thread and just tack these pieces down, not worrying too much about stitches, because by the time I've done all the decorative stitching over the top you aren't even going to see them. Tie a knot in the end first, and then I'm going to turn the whole thing over and stitch around the outline of the heart first, and that will catch most but not all of the pieces. Yeah, I'll work my way all the way around the heart, then I will flip it over, and any bits that are still kind of loose, I'll just put a couple extra stitches where they are. So I'll be back with you in a moment when I've done that. So I've gone all the way around the outside of the heart now, and there are just these, most of the pieces have been caught in at some point around the edge. There are just a few of these little pieces that aren't tacked down anywhere, so I'm just running some random stitches around to make sure they don't go anywhere while I do the decorative stitching. So these little bits that I'm trimming off now probably are going to be too small to use, so they'll get chucked into my orts jar. So one of the things I love to do is to stitch into whatever pattern is there already. So I could do some more little daisies around here, little lilacs here. I might put sequins on where each of these, I might put sequins here where these circles are, or just do lots and lots of stitching around these circles with a sequin in the middle. That's the kind of thing I like to do. But I think just to secure it all down a bit more, I'm going to do some just straight stitching first on some of these pieces. Do things like stitch a bead on each one of these circles. So I'll just let the pattern that's in the fabric guide me as to where I'm going to add my embellishments. Yes, I just feel like it's a good idea to do some plain straight stitching first onto some of these bits in the middle, just to make sure everything's held down before I do the fancy bits. So what I'm going to do is do some straight stitching running up, following this sort of section along here. Just not overthink it. I'm just taking my thread for a walk and see where it takes me. I'm working on these little pieces. Is lovely chance to try out some new stitches or just relax and do some old favourites. I have to say there's nothing I enjoy doing or enjoy the look of more than it's just rows and rows of this running stitch, canter style stitching. I just love it. I love the look of it and I find it very therapeutic to do. Where I did lots of it on the back, for this one I used that layer of the wadding underneath just to give it a bit more body to stitch into, so it makes it more sort of textural. Quite like doing little seed stitches as well, so do a little cluster of seed stitches just here, and that will help to hold all of that down and merge it all together. Okay, so I filled up that whole little area with a little pile of seed stitches. Used up that thread. Alright, what next? And I'm going to do, I quite enjoy doing cross stitches that aren't kind of cross like that, but cross like that. So I'm going to do some of them like little plus signs. I think I'm going to scatter them down here. I like to, if I'm doing a little stitch in one area, I like to just slightly overlap it into another area so that they sort of start to blend together. The same with if I'm stitching into a motif that's there, so like with these flowers, I would try and carry them over into this bit as well perhaps, or here, bring them down there, across there maybe. And I don't think too hard about where things are going to go, but I will tend to think, okay, I've got a pop of green here and here and here, so I'm kind of thinking of it in threes and balancing it out across a piece. So we'll have the gold there, which will kind of balance this out. So it doesn't need to be the same thing, but that's a kind of gold in a yellow thread. That's going to be that's going to have sequins on, and perhaps I'll think about putting a yellow there, but a finer yellow. And then I might use yellow beads as the centre of these flowers, so just to balance it out and give me my threes that I like. I am making sure on these crosses that all the uprights are going underneath and the cross pieces are on top, because I know it will irritate me if some are different. That's maybe just me, but with like traditional cross stitch you would do that actually. Now I think I've got some purple thread now. I think I'm going to run a line of Y stitch down from here down to here to link up. So I've got a little bit of purple there, a little bit of purple there. I'm going to kind of link them together with some purple Y stitch, but then I might take it along across here as well to hold this kind of more raggedy edge down. I quite like using Y stitch as a sort of joining stitch between two patches, because it sort of holds any raggedy edges down as well as looking quite pretty. I'm just going to kind of run this down there, sort of along, so it sort of follows down the edge of that pink one. Right, so I took that all the way down there, right, little piece across here to hold that all together, and now I'm just going to do some big kind of chunky cross stitches, sort of over stitches here to hold this bit down. There's really no particular plan here, it's just chilling out and enjoying the stitching. I'm going to do the same thing down here, I think, and I will just keep going with this until I feel like it's done. If I'm not happy with it yet, it's because I haven't finished stitching. And sometimes I can spend ridiculously long on a little piece like this. It's amazing how much time it can take up. But I really enjoy doing it, so that doesn't matter. So I always say it's called slow stitching for a really good reason. Maybe I could have some chain stitch along this line here. Now I think where I've got this little kind of natural little hole here, I'm going to fill that with sequins. Just got to decide which colour of sequins to go for now. I would tend to go for odd numbers of things, so this will probably either be 3 or 5 in here. I might dot some around the place as well, they're all staticky. Bring the thread up where I want the sequin to go, and then I'll just work my way around the sequin, so I'll come up over there and then go back down through the hole. And we'll do that 5 or 6 times around the whole sequin. So in this case I'm taking the stitches right out just to add a little bit of extra detail. So you can see I'll stitch and then I'll pile more stuff on top of it and stitch again. I'm not sort of worried about stitching over the bit that I've already done. I've just pulled my needle out, and I've also covered up quite a bit of sequin with my stitching, but you can still see the twinkle. So yeah, I'm going to add all 5 like that, and then I'll be back. And then I think I'm going to put some sequins here as well, and then do some circular stitching here. I'm going to do some blanket stitching around there, and maybe some eyelets here with beads in the middle, not sure yet. And I want to do these flowers like lazy daisies. Did a cluster of 5 sequins there. I've picked out some orange ones that will go up here in a minute, and then I'll probably use the orangey red thread to stitch around them. And now while I've got this red stranded cotton left, I'm going to do a blanket stitch around this red piece here. And I'll stitch into that pattern a bit as well. I'll just carry on stitching until I'm happy with it, or there's nowhere left to stitch. And I finished doing the blanket stitch, and now I've started adding the sequins into this piece. So again, I'm going to just overlap this what I'm doing here into the next section. So although that most of that dot there is missing, I'm going to imagine it's still there and put the sequin down in what would be the middle of it. And this time I'm attaching the sequin with a big French knot, and I know it needs to be quite a fat French knot, otherwise it's going to come off, because that's happened to me before. So I'm going to wind that around 3 times and then go back down through the hole. to make a French knot that hopefully is fat enough to hold that sequin on. And then I'm just going to start doing little straight stitches around the outside. Got a tufty bit here, but what I'll do is when I do the flowers, I'll complete that flower there that's mostly hidden, and that will go over here, semi-overlap the, the sequins. So you can see it's going to become quite kind of encrusted with stitching in the end. But that's what I love about this, it's that the preparation is so simple, where you just lay down these random patches of fabric and then you just have fun stitching into it. And I can prep, you know, several of these all at the same time, and then it would be a little fun thing to do in the evenings when I'm sitting watching the telly, and all I need is just a few bits around me. I'll just do one or two of the flowers with you because that's different, and sew some of these beads on, and then I will carry on stitching on this until I'm ready to add the back, and I'll come back and show you how it's looking, because be quite happy to sit and film hours and hours of stitching and talking to myself, but you might get a bit fed up watching. So I'm going to put a French knot in this colour, the same as these crosses, and it sort of brings in kind of tones with that colour as well. I'm going to put one in the centre of each of these flowers, including this one that's nearly missing. I'm going to wrap it around 3 times, even though it's quite a fat thread, because I want it to be a nice big chunky French knot. It makes quite a nice chunker. There, it's come down to where this one would be ish. Oops. So wrap it around 3 times, 2, 3. Slide it up so our needle's right up against the fabric, and pop that back down the hole. Yeah. None of the beads were quite the right colour. This one just wasn't bright enough, although it is yellow. And this one was just too greeny fluorescent, it just didn't look right. Done a little bit more stitching here, I've done a row of beads along there, a few more crosses up into here, and now I'm going to do one of these flowers. I think I'm going to do a little bit more of the purple Y stitch in a minute down here to join those 2 pieces. The French knots up there, little eyelets here, maybe with beads in the centre, and as many of these flowers as I feel like I want to do, and then I'll be ready to make the back and finish this off. And I'm going to try and remember to put a little hanging loop in this one, because I think that'd be quite fun. So all I'm doing is making a chain stitch for each of the petals. Then I'm going back to where I started the chain stitch and just doing a long straight stitch to fill the loop in, so it makes more of a solid petal. See if I can do that more so you can see it. Oh. So coming out at the base of the petal, back in right almost in the same hole, making sure that loop goes underneath around the back of the needle. The thread comes out on top of that loop, so that when I pull it through it catches like that. Take that down to secure the stitch, and back to the base of the petal again, I'm holding this at arm's length. I hope I'm holding it so you can see it. And then just doing a straight stitch to fill in the hole. I think that gives it quite a fun little petal effect. So I'm going to do all of these flowers like that, and some of these over here as well. Do whatever I decide to do here. Bit of a purple Y stitch there, and then I'm ready for the next stage. So I'll see you then. It's the next day, and I spent a happy time yesterday evening in front of the telly embroidering into all these patchwork pieces. I really enjoyed it. I could carry on. I definitely could carry on, but I decided it was time to stop and get this one finished up. I also drew around, I used this piece. I didn't draw around it actually, I just held it against a piece of the cotton batting that I'm using, the cotton interlining that I'm using, and also cut a piece of that same curtain lining that I've used on the back there that came in that bundle of fabrics I was given the other day. It's a nice way to use it actually. I wouldn't enjoy hand stitching into it on its own, but with the batting on the back it's really nice. And I've just started adding rows and rows of running stitch to it to create a bit of texture and interest, and add that pop of the orangey red against the pink, which I really like. I haven't kept the distance here uniform, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to keep on doing this, and then it's time to attach the two halves together. I think I will try sandwiching in a hanging loop this time. There we go. That's all that stitching finished. I found a piece of cord. I think this came out of a bazaar scrap pack, so I'm just going to use a little piece of that. I think that'll be enough. And I'm going to sandwich that between the two layers so that it becomes a hanging loop. I think I'll use clips this time to hold it together. Let's just put this in before I forget, because that's one of my favourite tricks. So I'm putting it in so it points downwards like that, leaving a couple of ends up here. And let's just get a clip on that so it doesn't go anywhere. And I will use a small running stitch all around here, because I'm planning to overstitch like this again. If I didn't want to do that kind of decorative overstitch, I'd do a back stitch now, so that it wouldn't need it. But yeah, I prefer to just do a running stitch and then do that over the top than do a back stitch. For some reason I get quite bored doing back stitch. So, and I also need to remember to leave a small opening, probably just along here, because that's sort of relatively straight bit that will be easier to turn the edges under. Do a little double stitch just to anchor everything. And yeah, just I think a running stitch will be enough for this. If I take the layers apart, you can see it's going to look a little bit gappy, but that will be enough to hold it together for me to do that decorative top stitch on. And it's not like the seam is going to get a lot of strain at all. So I'm going to work my way around, and then I'll need to clip my curves and turn it right way out and stuff it. So I'll be back when I'm ready for that. There we go, I finished stitching all around. I went slightly smaller on the stitches as I went around the curves, just to make sure I got a nice smooth curve. And I went into a back stitch on the points like here and here, and also where that hanging loop is. I just went over a few times. Normally I'd clip into this curve here, but that's going to be a bit difficult to do with I suppose I can still clip between those cords, I suppose. I will cut across here, reduce that bulk a little bit, and could cut round this curved part as well, just to help it to sit nice and smooth when I turn it right way out. But at the moment it's only a running stitch, so got to be careful not to snip too far. I think that will do. Here's where I've left my opening, so I'm going to turn it right way out now. I need a pokey something. Old knitting needle here. See, sometimes you get some bits where, because I've not done a back stitch, this is kind of, there's too much space between the stitches here and that's come up through. That's okay, poke it back in. That'll get sorted out when I do the over stitching. And here we got a little bit puckery here because I couldn't really clip it like I usually would, but I think that'll be alright once it's stuffed. So now I'm going to stuff it. See what I've got in my waltz jar that I can stuff with. Into the bulbous parts first, these two kind of top curves first. And then down into the point, to make sure I don't get any too big chunks in there. Bits of all sorts. Lots of threads, but also tiny snippets like that. Some bits of silk there from where I was making that scarf. That's this scarf. So some bits of that have gone in there. Some bits of hair from the doll I was making last week. Yeah. You go through your Orts jar, it reminds you of all the projects you've been working on recently. Now I need to, I've stuffed down into the point, I've stuffed the two rounded parts, and now I just need to make sure, whoops, I've stuffed all the middle as well. Okay, so I'm going to carry on stuffing this out, and I'm happy with it. Try and get rid of those puckery bits by squeezing some of the more thready bits of Orts into there to fill out that space. And then when I'm happy with it, I'm going to just tuck these two edges in like this, and do a ladder stitch to close that. I've finished stuffing and ladder stitched across the opening, which must have done a good job because I can't see where it was now. Might have been there. Anyway, so now I'm doing I decided the contrasting green would be nice, and I'm just doing a little overstitch along that seam. Now if I get any bits where it's slightly crooked or doesn't look quite right, I can just nudge the ends underneath with my needle and pinch the edges together so that it all kind of smooths out as I add this decorative stitch in. Yeah, I quite like the look of that little bit of contrast, and you can see it's starting to smooth out that line. All I've got left to do now is work my way around doing that, and then I'm done with these two hearts and on to the next idea. Voila, it's done. Very happy with that. It's got a little bit of a quirk there. I don't mind a bit of wonk at all. So yeah, that's the two. Let's see if we can get me a thumbnail. I'm very happy with how those turned out, and they were really enjoyable and relaxing to make as well. Yeah, I had a great time with them. So and that's what it's all about. I think that's the thing about these swaps. They're such the whole process is a joy, from the sort of thinking about it and planning it, to the making, to the sending things out to your swapsters, and then getting gorgeous pieces of stitchery, or in this case whatever, back in the post. It's, yeah, It's so much fun, and I can't wait to get on to the next idea. I can't wait to see more ideas popping up in the Facebook group and Discord community. It's been lovely to see the things people have come up with. It's interesting that this time, whereas before with the squares nobody was posting pictures of what they'd made until the recipients had received them, this time people seem to have got into the habit of, as I'm doing, making kind of batches of hearts and showing what they're doing, and it'll still be a surprise for the recipients because nobody knows which one they're going to get. So yeah, we can start sending these out in just over a week from today as I'm recording it. So by the time you see this on Monday, hang on, when does the 1st of April actually fall? It will be a week and a day before it's time to start sending them out. So yeah, so I'm going to crack on with the next idea. I think the next one I'm going to do one more slow stitch one that I'll do a video on, and then I'm going to move on to some different techniques. So I think the next one I'm going to do a flat stitched version, the kind of thing I might be more likely to send overseas, because you can send it as a large letter instead of a parcel, because these are fat enough that they probably wouldn't even go in a large letter. They'd have to be a parcel, I think. Although it's 2.5 centimetres, they might go in a large letter. But yeah, I want to do some flat ones as well that could be either sent just flat as flat heart shapes, or put onto a square for anybody that wanted a square. I don't think any of my swapsters said they minded what shape or size. But if anybody did want a square still, they would work. So yeah, I'm going to use some scraps. I'm going to do a version of the scrappy string squares that I did last year, but this time I won't do the torn edges. I'll show a way to do it so that you get neat finished edges. And I'm also going to do a kind of crazy quilt effect done in the what they call the what do they call it, stitch and flip method, which I really like. It's a really easy way to do it and use up lots of really quite tiny scraps as well. So I'm going to do that next, and then I'll be moving on to some of the other ideas that I've got. So yeah, I think I'm going to be spending the entire 3 months playing with ideas. There's just so many. I hope you enjoyed a little peek at that, at my experimenting. Thanks very much for joining me today. I just want to say a quick thank you to my lovely channel members. They'll be scrolling up here as we speak. We've got 41 members now. I cannot believe it. Tom and I are going to get together tomorrow and do a new custom emoji. We're allowed another custom emoji now. We're past 40 members. If you want to find out more, there's a button down here that says join, down here somewhere. If you click on that, it will come up with a window that tells you all about it. So thank you so much to all of you who choose to support us in that way. It is so much appreciated. Hearts. And thank you to everybody as well for watching the videos, for all your lovely comments, for just giving it a thumbs up, and for subscribing. Subscribing to the channel still costs nothing and really helps us out, so I really appreciate that. You are, of course, everyone is welcome to join the Arty Farty Annie group on Facebook and or the Arty Farty Discord community, full of lovely, creative, fun, supportive people. It's just such an amazing community, and it's the driving thing. It was the inspiration behind these swaps. It's just, yeah, which are going from strength to strength. They just get better and better. So it's a lovely way to celebrate that community. So if you would like to be part of the community, you are very welcome to join. They're both free to join, and you can find all the information you need there about the swaps and lots of other inspiration and ideas. And that's also where you need to go to look for swapsters if you want to join in. So that's more than enough waffle from me for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye. Where's my button gone?